Good evening, and welcome to Short Storytime Theater with William Baxter, that's me. And tonight's story is entitled The Three Tales of the Bishop of Myra, from my book, W.E.B Tales. Now, the Bishop of Myra was none other than Saint Nicholas, the saint where Santa Claus and the legend of Santa Claus is derived from. Three Tales of the Bishop of Myra. Long ago, in the early 4th century, in the town of Myra, located in the Roman Empire, which is now Turkey, a mysterious man made his way down a street in the dark of night and towards a home which was inhabited by a poor widower and his 3 virgin daughters. He approached the window and saw an opening in the window. Now, this wasn't a burglar, and he was not up to any foul play. He actually was one of the richest men in town. He was the Bishop of Myra, and he was there to perform a good deed of generosity toward this poor widower and his 3 daughters. His name was Nicholas. Nicholas was born in Patara in what is now Turkey on March 15th, 270 AD. He was raised in a very wealthy Christian family. His parents died young in an epidemic and left everything to Nicholas. However, he responded to God's calling in the New Testament of the Holy Bible to give his money to the poor and needy, and so he spent his life performing acts of generosity. And so Nicholas went into the priesthood, and he later became Bishop of Myra. Yet still he did not deplete his assets. That is how wealthy Nicholas was. This brings us back to the story of the poor father and his 3 virgin daughters. Back in those days, young women who wanted to get married had to produce an adequate dowries of gold. The bigger the dowry, the more suitable husband they would find. Those women who didn't have big enough dowries were sold into slavery. The poor widower's 3 daughters were in danger of just that. Nicholas heard of the 3 daughters' plight, and so during the dark of night, just before the first daughter came of age, Nicholas made his way toward the open window and tossed a bag of gold through the window. So the first daughter now had a suitable dowry. Nicholas did the same thing just before the second daughter came of age. Just before the third daughter came of age, the father wanted to catch their benefactor in the act to reveal his identity. Nicholas heard of this, so he took a different approach, and he climbed up onto the roof and made his way to the chimney. That same night, the third daughter had washed her shoes and put them out by the fireplace to dry. Nicholas dropped the bag of gold down the chimney, and it landed right into the young lady's shoe. So now 3 daughters had suitable dowries and were able to get married. News of the bishop's good deed got around, as Nicholas' identity was finally revealed. If any poor families needed generous gifts from Bishop Nicholas, all they had to do was leave their shoes or stockings out by the fireplace in hopes they would receive gifts from Bishop Nicholas. And a lot of them did. This is the first tale of the Bishop of Myra, illustrating him as the generous giver of gifts and helping others in need. The second tale of the Bishop of Myra involved three theology students who were on their way to Athens, Greece, to study the Bible. They stopped over to spend the night at an inn. Now, the innkeeper was not a good guy, as he robbed and murdered the three theology students and stashed their bodies in a pickle tub. It just so happened that Nicholas was staying at that same inn, and he had a dream about the incident. Nicholas confronted the innkeeper and found the bodies. He prayed to God over the three young theology students, and they came back to life. And so Nicholas also became known as a protector of young ones, and especially children. The third tale began after Nicholas visited the Holy Land as a young man. He set sail on a ship back to Myra. After visiting the Holy Land, Nicholas knew a bad storm was coming out at sea, but Nicholas assured the crew that God would protect them. Later, the storm hit, and it was a bad one. The ship was in danger of being smashed up completely and lost at sea. A sailor climbed up the mast in an attempt to tie it off so it was more secure, but the sailor slipped and plunged to the deck below, killing him instantly. Soon Nicholas appeared on the deck and prayed over the storm and the crew, and the storm stopped and the sea was calm. Then he went over to the dead sailor and prayed over him, which yielded the same results as the three theology students. It was almost like that sailor was only sleeping. So later on, Nicholas became the patron saint of sailors. Not all of Nicholas' life was acts of generosity and performing miracles. There was a dark time in the life of Nicholas in the late 3rd and early 4th century AD, when Diocletian was the emperor of Rome. He was a ruthless persecutor of Christians, and he had Nicholas exiled and cast into a dark dungeon where he was often beaten and tortured for his faith in Jesus Christ. Eventually, Diocletian was succeeded by Constantine, who a lot of you know was opposite of what Diocletian was. Constantine was very much a Christian. After Constantine became emperor of Rome, Nicholas was released and later asked to join the First Council of Nicaea and became one of the signers of the Nicene Creed, which is a confession of faith in various churches, including the Protestant Church. So Nicholas lived out the rest of his life performing acts of generosity, and he died on December 6th, 343 AD at the age of 73. He was later canonized a saint and was known as Saint Nicholas from that time on. His feast day is December 6th. Through the Dark Ages, people celebrated Saint Nicholas' life of generosity and goodwill to others with gift giving around December 6th. The stories of Saint Nicholas started to become more and more unpopular during the Renaissance, the 16th century, but people still wanted their presents, particularly children. And so someone had to be the deliverer of gifts, which eventually migrated from St. Nicholas Day on December 6th to the birth of Christ on December 25th. So the name Father Christmas was adopted. When people began settling in the New World, colonial America, the name Kris Kringle was adopted. When the Dutch began settling in colonial America, they referred to Kris Kringle as Sinterklaas, which was later sandpapered out to Santa Claus. Today, the legend of St. Nicholas and his life of generous giving and goodwill to others lives on through folklore legend of Santa Claus. The concept of St. Nicholas and Santa Claus came more into focus during the 19th century, with publications such as Clement Moore's 1823 poem, A Visit from St. Nicholas, aka 'Twas the Night Before Christmas, and later through a popular Christmas folk song like this one. Jolly old St. Nicholas, lean your ear this way. Don't you tell a single soul what I'm about to say. Christmas Eve is coming soon. Now, you dear old man, whisper what you'll bring to me. Tell me if you can. When the clock is striking 12, when I'm fast asleep, down the chimney broad and black, with your pack you'll creep. All the stockings you will find hanging in a row. Mine will be the shortest one, you'll be sure to know. Johnny wants a pair of skates, Susie wants a dolly, Nellie wants a storybook. She thinks that dolls are folly. As for me, my little brain isn't very bright. Choose for me, old Santa Claus, what you think is right. Thank you for tuning in to Short Story Time Theater with William Baxter. That was the story of St. Nicholas, which Santa Claus evolved from. Only St. Nicholas was a real person. And I hope you enjoyed tonight's story. I'll be back with more stories and more folk songs, and maybe even more Christmas carols. You all have a good evening now.